The story begins on the hangar on Naboo, where Qui-Gon Jinn and his Padawan, Obi-Wan, stood locked in battle with Darth Maul. The fight pushed them to the edge. Just when it seemed Qui-Gon had found an opening, Maul struck hard. A blow landed across Qui-Gon's side, knocking him back. Pain surged through him. He collapsed, barely conscious. Maul stepped in for the kill, but Obi-Wan Kenobi arrived just in time. Fueled by fear and anger, Obi-Wan fought with intensity. His duel with Maul was desperate and brutal. It ended when Obi-Wan, through quick thinking and one final leap, struck Maul down. The Sith fell, motionless. Obi-Wan rushed to Qui-Gon's side, afraid he was already gone. But Qui-Gon was alive, barely. The wound was serious, and it would leave him scarred. Back on Coruscant, after weeks of treatment and rest, Qui-Gon faced the Jedi Council again. Though weak in body, his voice was firm. He told them that Anakin Skywalker must be trained. Qui-Gon had felt something in the boy, and he believed only he could guide him. The council hesitated. They were not fully convinced Anakin was the chosen one, but they saw Qui-Gon's determination and finally gave their reluctant approval. Obi-Wan was quiet when he heard the decision. He nodded and accepted it, but something shifted between them. The friendship that had once been full of warmth became cooler, more distant. They didn't argue, but there was a silence between them that never quite went away. When training began, things did not go smoothly. Qui-Gon was nothing like the other Jedi. He taught through feeling, not form. He didn't always follow the Council's orders. He told Anakin to listen to the Force in the moment, not to fear what might come later. But Anakin couldn't help it. His thoughts were always elsewhere. On his mother, on dreams of danger and loss, on futures he couldn't explain but felt deeply. The two clashed often. Anakin wanted to learn fast. He had power, and he knew it. Qui-Gon tried to slow him down, to teach patience and balance. Anakin grew frustrated. He didn't understand why he couldn't visit his mother. He didn't understand why Qui-Gon ignored the future when his dreams were full of warning. Qui-Gon listened, but he never gave in. He believed fear of loss led to the dark side. He would not allow Anakin to feed that fear. Anakin began to resent him. He felt alone, even with a master beside him. The other younglings saw his anger and avoided him. The teachers whispered about his strength and his danger. And though Qui-Gon stayed close, he was also distant, always urging balance, never showing much emotion. To Anakin, it felt like rejection. But beneath it all, there was something else. Qui-Gon saw himself in Anakin, strong-willed, questioning, never satisfied with easy answers. And Anakin, even when angry, still listened. He failed often, but he kept coming back. There were moments when the training clicked, when the Force moved through them both in perfect harmony. Those moments were rare, but they gave Qui-Gon hope. As the months passed, their bond formed slowly, through arguments, lessons, and shared silence. It was not like other Jedi bonds. It was messier, more human. Qui-Gon was not a perfect teacher. Anakin was not an obedient student, but they were tied together by something deeper, a sense that their path, however hard, was meant to be walked together. Anakin's thoughts of his mother never faded. Qui-Gon's ways continued to frustrate the Council. Obi-Wan stayed in the background, watching from a distance, proud but unsure. The Jedi had allowed the training, but they were uneasy. After their early struggles at the Jedi Temple, Qui-Gon and Anakin left Coruscant for good stretches of time. The Council kept assigning them to far-off missions, often to troubled systems where Jedi were needed, but not closely watched. Qui-Gon preferred it this way. The Outer Rim was messy, full of disputes, politics, and suffering, but it was also real. It gave him space to teach Anakin in his own way. The years that followed were hard, but full of growth. Anakin saw much of the galaxy, the good and the bad. He stopped being the wide-eyed boy from Tatooine and became a skilled Jedi, known for his quick reflexes, bold thinking, and strong will. But he also carried a restlessness inside him. He still had questions no one wanted to answer. He still missed his mother. And though he trusted Qui-Gon more now, they still clashed over ideas, over choices, over right and wrong. Then came one mission that changed them both. It was in the edge of the Maid Rim. A distress call had gone out from a small colony. Qui-Gon and Anakin were sent to investigate. What they found was worse than either had expected. A secret group, not Sith, but dark in their own way, had been using the Force to experiment on children. The cult believed fear and pain unlocked hidden power. The young ones were locked in cages, some barely alive. The council had ordered them to observe only, not interfere yet. But Anakin didn't wait. He broke into the compound and freed the children on his own. When some cult members resisted, he used the Force more violently than usual, pushing his emotions to the surface. Qui-Gon arrived just in time to stop him from crossing a line. Back on Coruscant, the council was not pleased. Anakin had gone against orders. Some of them even warned Qui-Gon that his training methods were causing trouble. But Qui-Gon stood by his student. He said Anakin had done the right thing, even if it wasn't the Jedi way. This moment drew a deeper line between the two of them and the rest of the Order. Not long after that, Anakin made a decision without telling anyone. He had never stopped thinking about his mother. Dreams of her suffering had grown stronger, more painful. One night, without permission, he took a ship and set course for Tatooine. He didn't tell Qui-Gon. He didn't tell the council. He just left. Qui-Gon felt a sharp disturbance in the Force. When he arrived on Tatooine, he found Anakin already deep in the search. But it was too late. Shmi Skywalker had been taken months ago by slavers. There was no clear trail, no one who knew where she'd gone. Anakin searched every street, questioned every traitor, but in the end, he found nothing. He broke down. All the anger, all the fear, all the guilt, it came out in silence and tears. Qui-Gon didn't lecture him. He didn't scold. He sat beside him in the sand, under the same suns that had once lit Anakin's childhood. That night, something changed between them. Qui-Gon stopped being just a teacher. He became something closer to a father. Anakin's bond to him grew stronger after that, but so did the pressure. The dreams didn't stop. One night, he had a vision, a clear, chilling one. It wasn't about his mother. This time, he saw Qui-Gon. In the vision, a shadowy figure stood over him. The figure had burning eyes, like fire, and Qui-Gon was helpless before him. Anakin woke, shaking. He told Qui-Gon everything. Qui-Gon didn't dismiss the dream. He listened carefully, then told Anakin that fear of loss would lead him to ruin. He explained that the future was always changing, and that holding on too tightly would only bring suffering. He began teaching Anakin how to let go of fear, not to ignore it, but to face it. For a while, it helped. Then came war. The Clone Wars broke out after the attack on Geonosis. All across the galaxy, Jedi were being asked to take command of clone armies. The Council approved. The Republic depended on it. But Qui-Gon refused. He told them Jedi were not soldiers. They were not meant to lead armies or become tools of governments. The Force was not a weapon. This put him at odds with many Jedi, including Obi-Wan, who had become a general and a respected leader in the war. Their old friendship, already strained, grew colder. Anakin watched it all with mixed feelings. He wanted to help, to protect people, but he also saw the truth in Qui-Gon's words. The Jedi were changing, and not for the better. Anakin and Qui-Gon stayed on the edges of the war, taking missions that didn't involve battle. They focused on rescue, peacekeeping, and diplomacy. Sometimes it made them look like cowards. Sometimes it saved lives no one else could. But the war was spreading, and the dark side was growing. As Anakin grew older, his skills as a Jedi became known across the galaxy. He was no longer the Padawan some had doubted. He had saved lives, completed hard missions, and faced challenges most Jedi never had. Some began calling him a hero. Others, including members of the Jedi Council, still watched him with caution. But one man had watched Anakin closely for years, Chancellor Palpatine. Palpatine had tried many times to get close to the boy, especially during political gatherings or Jedi briefings. He would speak kindly, praise Anakin's bravery, and offer him a seat at his side. But Qui-Gon always kept his student at arm's length. He didn't trust Palpatine, though he had no proof of anything dark. He simply felt that the Chancellor was not what he seemed. Over time, Palpatine's patience thinned. Anakin was becoming too grounded, too steady. He had been hoping to shape the boy, twist his mind, make him see the Jedi as narrow and foolish. But Qui-Gon had gotten in the way. Palpatine began to shift his focus elsewhere. He reached out to his old apprentice, Count Dooku, who had fully embraced the Sith and taken the name Darth Tyrannus. Together, they began planning a new move, one that would stir the galaxy again and break the Jedi from within. Meanwhile, fate caught up with Anakin in another way. On a mission far from Coruscant, Anakin came across a trader who spoke of slaves being moved across systems. One of the names in a shipment list caught Anakin's eye. Shmi, his mother. He felt it in the Force. This was real. Without waiting for orders or telling Qui-Gon, Anakin followed the trail. He tracked it through dirty backwater ports, through outer colonies where life was cheap. He found her finally in a camp run by slavers. But it was too late. Shmi was dying. She had been hurt, beaten, left to fade away. Anakin held her as she passed. She smiled when she saw him. She said his name. Then she was gone. Something inside Anakin broke. Rage took hold. The slavers didn't stand a chance. He cut them down one after another. There was no thought, only anger, grief, and revenge. When it was over, he stood in the middle of it all, blood on his hands, heart pounding. He knew what he had done, and he knew it was wrong. He returned to their ship without a word. When he reunited with Qui-Gon, he hid everything. He acted quiet, distant, but the Force told Qui-Gon the truth. He felt the pain, the anger, the guilt wrapped around Anakin like smoke. He confronted Anakin gently at first, asking if something had happened, but Anakin refused to speak. When Qui-Gon pushed harder, the truth came out. Anakin expected understanding. Instead, he saw disappointment. Qui-Gon didn't yell, but his silence was worse. He told Anakin that this path would lead to ruin. He said the anger had to be faced and let go, not buried. Anakin couldn't hear it. He felt judged. He felt betrayed. He had lost everything, and instead of comfort, he found lectures. In his eyes, Qui-Gon no longer understood him. Their bond, once strong, cracked deeply that day. Anakin walked away. Elsewhere, Palpatine and Dooku moved their plan forward. Palpatine knew Qui-Gon was the key to keeping Anakin steady, so he ordered Dooku to remove that key. Dooku, who had once been Qui-Gon's master, sent out a challenge. He invited Qui-Gon to meet him, claiming he wanted to speak in peace. Qui-Gon accepted the call, knowing it could be a trap. He had to know what had happened to Dooku. He still believed there might be something good left in him. But when he arrived, he saw the truth. Dooku had fallen fully. He was no longer the man who once guided him. Dooku didn't hide behind politics or lies. He offered Qui-Gon a place at his side. He said the Jedi had lost their way, that only through the dark side could peace be restored. He said the Republic was already rotten. He even claimed that the Sith had always planned for his apprentice, Anakin, to rise, and that Qui-Gon had only delayed the future, not stopped it. Qui-Gon refused, and a duel started. It was not like past battles. This was slow, painful, and personal. They knew each other too well. Dooku was still powerful and now fueled by the dark side. Qui-Gon struggled. His old wound still ached. He fought with heart, not strength. Back on their ship, Anakin felt it. Even after their fallout, the bond between them was still there. He knew Qui-Gon was in danger. He followed the feeling, ignoring orders, racing to the location. He arrived just in time. Dooku stood over Qui-Gon, ready to end it. But this time, Anakin was the one who saved his master. He fought Dooku fiercely. The Sith Lord laughed at the boy's anger, but Anakin stayed in control, just barely. Together, Anakin and Qui-Gon forced Dooku to retreat. When the duel ended, there was no celebration. Qui-Gon was wounded again, this time deeper than before. But he looked at Anakin with quiet pride. Anakin helped him up, unsure what to say. The moment between them was cold, but honest. They escaped and returned to their path, unsure of what would come next. The air between Anakin and Qui-Gon stayed tense after the duel with Dooku. They spoke little on the flight back. Trust had been shaken. Wounds had not fully healed, but something had shifted. When they returned to their quarters on a quiet Jedi outpost, Anakin sat in silence for a long time. Then, without being asked, he told the truth. He told Qui-Gon everything. He spoke of the slavers on Tatooine, of his rage, of the moment when he gave in and let the anger control him, of how he killed them all without mercy. He didn't defend it. He didn't excuse it. He just told it plainly, like it had been waiting inside him all along. Qui-Gon listened, calm and still. His face didn't show shock or anger. When Anakin finished, he expected judgment, maybe even exile. But Qui-Gon said softly, "I won't let your shadow define you, but you must face it." He didn't offer forgiveness because it wasn't his to give. He offered a path forward. That path led them to Dagobah, a quiet, misty world strong in the Force. Qui-Gon had been here once, long ago. He believed the planet could help Anakin face what still lived inside him. They stayed in the swamps for days, then weeks. They didn't fight enemies. They didn't run drills. They meditated. They trained. And Anakin entered the cave. Inside that dark place, the Force brought visions. Anakin saw himself older, dressed in black, eyes yellow with hate. He saw Padme dying, Obi-Wan turning on him, Qui-Gon lying dead again. He cried out, struck at the visions with his saber, but they only grew stronger. When he emerged, he was pale and shaken. Qui-Gon said nothing at first. Then he simply asked, "What did you learn?" Anakin said, "That I'm afraid of myself." Qui-Gon nodded. That was the first truth. From there, real growth began. Later that year, a peace summit was arranged between Republic worlds and neutral systems caught in the Clone Wars. Anakin was sent as part of a Jedi presence, not to fight, but to observe. That was when he saw her again, Padme Amidala. She was no longer queen, but now served as a senator. Time had changed both of them, but their connection came back the moment they spoke. It wasn't fiery or forbidden. It was simple, familiar, warm. They walked together between meetings, talked late into the night. They didn't try to hide how they felt. Qui-Gon noticed, of course. He said nothing to stop it. Unlike the Jedi Council, he didn't see love as a weakness. He believed attachment could become dangerous, yes, but not love itself. To him, balance didn't come from rejecting feeling. It came from understanding it. He warned Anakin to stay aware of his emotions, not bury them. He didn't forbid the bond. And because of this, Anakin didn't feel the need to lie. That one small choice, Qui-Gon's silence, kept Anakin from the hidden shame that might have grown into darkness. As war spread across the galaxy, Anakin and Qui-Gon continued their work. But the focus of their path began to shift. Qui-Gon had been studying something deeper than Jedi doctrine. He had spent years researching the Force beyond what the Council taught. He studied old texts, lost teachings, whispers of the ancient wills. One night, by a small fire in a forest temple far from Coruscant, Qui-Gon told Anakin what he had found. He spoke of a way to remain after death. Not through power, not through fear, but through deep surrender to the Force. A path to retain consciousness, to become part of the living Force without losing the self. It was not a trick or a tool. It was a truth that had been forgotten by most Jedi. Anakin didn't understand all of it, but he felt the importance. Qui-Gon said he believed Anakin truly was the chosen one. Not because he would destroy the Sith, but because he could bring balance by seeing both sides clearly. Not light alone, not dark alone, but the whole of the Force, life and death, peace and emotion, order and freedom. The trials Anakin faced in the cave, the choices he made with Padme, even the mistakes he carried. They had all prepared him for this greater understanding. He was not perfect, but he was no longer ruled by fear. He had begun to change. Qui-Gon watched with quiet pride. His role as master was fading. Anakin was stepping into his own. The galaxy was still at war, but something new was growing in the shadows. Hope. The Clone Wars dragged on. Systems fell. Planets burned. Jedi died in battles they were never meant to fight. In the heart of the Republic, Palpatine, now Supreme Chancellor for far longer than his term allowed, tightened his grip. The Senate gave him more power in the name of safety. Most Jedi didn't see the shift. Qui-Gon did. He warned the Council that something was wrong, that the war was not what it seemed. Few listened. Even Obi-Wan, now respected and trusted by many, found it hard to accept. The Jedi were too deep in the conflict. They couldn't see clearly. But Qui-Gon and Anakin stayed on the outside, watching closely. Palpatine had waited long enough. His plans had failed to twist Anakin, but he still had Dooku. He set his final plan in motion. The trap came in the form of a secret, a leak that exposed Palpatine's own use of emergency powers to create a personal army. Mace Windu and a group of Jedi moved fast. They entered the Chancellor's office, ready to confront him. What they found was not a leader clinging to power. It was a Sith Lord. The fight broke out. Palpatine moved like lightning, cutting down 2 Jedi before anyone could react. Windu held his ground, but this time, he was not alone. Qui-Gon and Anakin arrived, drawn by the surge in the Force. They entered the room just as Windu locked sabers with the Sith. Palpatine desperately called Anakin forward, tried to twist his thoughts, saying the Jedi were traitors, saying he only wanted peace. But Anakin didn't move. He had walked that path before. He had felt the pull of anger, of fear, of the easy answer. He didn't let it win this time. He stood beside Windu and Qui-Gon. Together, they overpowered Palpatine. The Sith Lord was strong, but the balance had shifted. He was arrested, not killed, stripped of power and taken into Jedi custody. The Senate was shaken. The war began to crumble, but the Jedi were not whole. The Council, already worn down by years of war, finally began to split. Some Jedi admitted the old ways had failed. Others clung even tighter to tradition, unwilling to change. Qui-Gon didn't argue anymore. Instead, he asked permission to start a new Jedi Academy, one rooted in the living Force, free from politics and the rigid rules of the past. The Council, recognizing his role in stopping the Sith, agreed. He didn't leave alone. A small group of Jedi followed him, those who, like him, believed the Order needed to change. Anakin was among them. The Republic limped forward. The clones were disbanded. The Senate restructured itself. Peace didn't come easily, but it began. Padme helped shape the new government. She and Anakin didn't hide their bond anymore. They married quietly. Anakin didn't return to the old temple. Instead, he helped Qui-Gon build the new school, far away from Coruscant. They chose a quiet world untouched by war, a forest planet with lakes, open skies, and no Senate above them. Here, he trained younglings not to fear the dark, but to face it with wisdom. Padme joined him soon after. She left politics behind. She brought hope in a different way now, as a mother. Luke and Leia were born under starlight. Anakin held them both with hands that had once been filled with anger, but were now soft and sure. He cried when they opened their eyes, not because he feared the future, but because, for once, he felt it would be bright. Qui-Gon came to visit in the final season of his life. His steps were slower now. His beard had gone gray, and his eyes carried the weight of years, but also peace. He stayed for a few days, walking the forest with Anakin, speaking softly with Padme, and most of all, spending time with the twins. He held Leia first. She was curious and sharp-eyed, grabbing at his robe with tiny fingers. "She has her mother's fire," he said with a grin. Then he met Luke, calm and wide-eyed, always watching, and his father's heart. Anakin watched them play beneath the trees while Qui-Gon sat nearby in the shade. For a while, they didn't speak. They didn't need to. The war, the pain, the past, it was behind them now. This was the reward neither of them had expected. A life. As the sun dipped low, Qui-Gon asked Anakin to walk with him to the lake. They sat at the edge, watching the light stretch across the still water. The air was warm and peaceful. For a long while, neither of them spoke. Then Qui-Gon turned to him, his voice soft but steady. "You were the chosen one, Anakin, not to destroy the dark, but to bring balance." Anakin looked down, unsure. "Did I?" Qui-Gon nodded slowly. "Yes. You brought balance, not through power, but through choice, through love, through letting go." The last light of the sun touched the water. Qui-Gon leaned back, eyes on the sky. "The Force is quiet now. It's whole. That's because of you, Annie. You are the future. Trust in the Force, and never let fear guide your choices." You have broken the chains of the past." Then he closed his eyes. His breath slowed. And just like that, Qui-Gon faded, his body becoming one with the Force like mist in the morning. Anakin didn't speak. He just sat there, watching the sky. Then, from the silence, a voice spoke gently. "I'm always with you. Just listen." Anakin smiled through quiet tears.